What's going on, everyone? It's your girl, Mr. Miracle. I hope your Friday night was filled with fun and laughter. Hopefully your week was great. And if you got paid, I hope you spend your money wisely. So I want to come on and talk about this being the 20th anniversary of one of my favorite albums being released this month. This is going to be a two-parter because it's going to be about two different people, two different artists, both R&B oriented. And the first one I'm going to be discussing is Tweet. And these are debut albums. The second one will be about Ashanti's debut album. The reason why Tweets will be first is because Tweet was an artist that had been around going back in the early 90s when she was in a group that was involved with the production team of Swing Mob, okay? But Tweet was also a woman who was in her 30s. She's actually older than me, but when she released her debut album, she was only about 32 years old. Wow, time flows by really fast. That was 2 decades ago because now she's 52. But I love this album of Tweets. I thought, I'll take that back. She was 31. She's born in 71. I take that back. But I just love this album so much. Tweet's debut album, Southern Hummingbird. I overplayed that album. I still have it in my house to this day. I still have the cover. I still have the CD. It's still clean, including the glass that it came in. But you could tell there's some scratches because when you overplay your album, it can happen. And 20 years is a long time. But I'm going to go and talk about the artist itself. So Tweet, born Charlene Keys in 1971 on January 21st. She's a singer-songwriter and also a guitarist. She was born in Rochester, New York. And she became a singer around the time in 1992. And as I said, she was part of Devontae Swing's Swing Mob Collective. But she was actually part of an R&B group named Sugar. And it was composed of herself along with a woman named Susan Weems and Rolita White. Now, she left her parents' home and relocated to many places. And her parents basically were living in Panama City. And she had a daughter. And she had a daughter pretty young. And she was, struggling to make it in the industry. And she met a woman while being part of the group Sugar. She met a woman named Misdemeanor Elliott, who was part of a group called Sister. Now, Sister actually had a moderate R&B hit back in 1994. They don't have their own Wikipedia page, but you could look up the video of Sister. They all had like side ponytails, and Missy Elliott was the lead of the group. So she basically forged a friendship with Missy Elliott. And she also worked with Magoo, Timbaland. She was also familiar with Genuine. And it was also a group there at the time called Player. And Player basically was famous for a song called Cheers to You that came out in 1998. And it was a top 10 R&B hit. Player never became that big of a group. But they at least was able to say, I got a top 10 hit. So by the time we got to the late 90s, the group Sugar was basically stagnant. They didn't even have an album. They didn't even have a single release at that time. And she felt as though Devontae Swing could have did more for the group, but he didn't. And by this time, Missy blew up. Timbaland, Magoo blew up. Genuine became big. Player was doing okay. So she pretty much went back home to Panama City, Florida, not just with broken dreams, but also penniless and depressed. And her depression got so bad that after not really making it in the industry, a string of bad relationships and dead-end jobs, she basically wanted to end it. Around that time, she got a phone call from Missy Elliott asking her to basically do some background vocals for her upcoming album called Miss E, So Addicted. Now, that album actually went on to go platinum. And it had a lot of big hits. One called 1 Minute Man, Get Your Freak On, Lick Shots, and Takeaway For My People. Now, if you remember the song Takeaway featured Genuine and Tweet. Tweet was the one that sung the hook. Now, I love Takeaway. I was playing Takeaway a couple of weeks ago. And that's when I remembered, oh snap, this is Tweet's 20th anniversary of her debut album being released. I gotta talk about this on my channel. I gotta talk about it. But there was so much other news that I was like talking about, and then also trying to, talk about television shows that I watched that I put it in the back burner. But I should have talked about this at the beginning, because the album Southern Hummingbird actually dropped in April of 2001. It was actually April the 2nd. That Tuesday. Now, once she basically started working with Missy Elliott again, she started recording vocals for her albums and everything, and started working on Missy Elliott's not Missy Elliott, Magoo, Timbaland's follow-up platinum album, Timbaland's solo album, Ja Rule's album, Petey Pablo, Bubba Sparxxx. She was doing a lot. So what happened was, since she basically was doing like really great as a background vocalist, she got signed to Elektra Records. And she started working on her debut solo album, No More Girl Groups. And I felt that this was Missy Elliott paying it forward. Because even if things don't work out for you in the beginning in the entertainment industry, if you forge great connections with people don't forget that. And when they need somebody who they can basically rely on, or somebody who they know is talented and want a big break and want to be grateful, they will call you and be like, listen, I have this project coming up, and, I think that your vocals will be great on it. And that's a job, and that opens other doors. And that's what happened to Tweet. So in March of 2002, while working on her debut album, her first official single, Oops, Oh My, was released. Now, if you remember Oops, Oh My, that was a song that went like da 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 da. Tell you what I did last night. That's all I'm singing, because you know how YouTube is. But anyway, when I first heard that song, I didn't know who Tweet was. I don't even remember the group Sugar, but I'm going to tell you something. I heard that song, and I was a freshman in college, and they used to play that video all the time. And I said one thing, that song going to go number one. That song going to go number one. And let me tell you, that song went number one. That song went number one on the R&B charts in America, but it was also a top 10 hit in the U.S. on the Billboard Hot 100. It was a top 5 hit in the United Kingdom, and it was the number 2 R&B song in the UK. All right? I said this is going to be a big hit for her. I just knew it. Now, the song basically was about self-pleasuring, so it was very risque, but nobody cared. We just loved the hit. We just loved the beat. And it was a big hit in the clubs. It was a big hit, especially during spring break, because that song, if you went to spring break, particularly in places like Virginia, Florida, California, Texas, all the places out on the islands, Caribbean, they was pumping that, because everybody I knew who went out to spring break that March, April, they was bumping this song like crazy. So the song basically propelled the album to be released early. So the album was released April 2002. And the album itself debuted at number 3 in the U.S. So it was number 3 in the U.S. and it was number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. Now, the album ended up going platinum, which was a big hit, but it went gold. I take that back. The album went gold. I take that back. It went gold. But the album was still a big smash hit because it was the debut album for a woman who was in her 30s. And that had never really been seen before, that somebody who was 30, who didn't lie about her age. She didn't lie about her age. Basically had another chapter and was given a second chance in the music business and was able to have a number 1 hit and a top 10 hit on the pop charts. What kept her album from going number 1 was Ashanti, because of the hit song Foolish. Now, the history of those two, it was never a beef, never a riff. Their albums were released the same week. I will talk about Ashanti tomorrow, but both of their albums were pushed up. But Elektra didn't know that Irv Gotti was going to release Ashanti's album so soon, because Ashanti basically was a girl who was just she was singing on hooks. I will talk more about that tomorrow because it's a very interesting story behind that. But Missy Elliott, they talked about, Ashanti beating her and how do you feel about it? And Sweet was like, listen, I basically got a second chance in this business. My album is on the top of the charts. I have a number 1 single. She won. Congratulations to her. But I'm not stressing it. It is what it is. I got more work to do on this album, and I'm going to be promoting it. I'm going to be touring and everything. And it is what it is. I'm happy for her, and that's all. So after the release of Oops, Oh My, she basically went on to release a song called Call Me. Now, Call Me was a really good song. I like that single. That was my song. Now, Call Me was not a big hit like the song Oops, Oh My. And Call Me only reached about number 8 on the R&B charts and was number 31 in the pop charts. But Call Me got her an endorsement with Verizon. And they played the commercial on BET. They played it even on the basic cable networks, basic channels, even on other cable networks as well. By the end of the summer of 2002, Call Me basically ran its course. Verizon still was promoting the song. If you went to Verizon Wireless, they had it all throughout basically the rest of 2002. Now, this is when things start getting it starts going downhill for Tweet with the album. There was a song on the album that was really great, and it was called Smoking Cigarettes. I love that song. It's my favorite song on the album. That and the song Beautiful. Boogie Tonight, great song, but it should have been the last song on the album. Smoking Cigarettes was being promoted. It was supposed to be released for that September. Great song. She promoted on Ricky Lake. You could look at the videos, type in Ricky Lake, Tweet, Smoking Cigarettes. She promoted it. The last minute, Elektra decided we're not going to use it. We're not going to promote the album. We're not going to promote the song. There was ads lined up where she got endorsements from Camel. She was talking about how she got endorsement from Camel, even though the song is like an ode to like watching like how you smoke cigarettes, but still tobacco companies, some of them were like, hey, we'll endorse the song. They dropped the ball. And in my opinion, when they went with Boogie Tonight instead of smoking cigarettes, her career fizzled out too soon. If Smoking Cigarettes had been the third single, I can tell you her album would have went platinum. And Smoking Cigarettes would have been her second number one R&B song. Now, it might not have been a pop song. It probably wouldn't have been a top 10 hit. It probably would have only been maybe a top 40 hit. But that would have been okay. She would have had another number one hit. And that album going platinum would have definitely solidified her to being a platinum selling artist. Okay? They went with Boogie Tonight. And you know what it did? It did nothing. It was only 176 on the UK charts. It did nothing. It did nothing. Nothing. And by that time, she basically, started working on her second album. Her second album, I bought it. And I can't even remember the songs that was on there. Except for Taxi. And I cried when I heard that album because I knew that she was not going to be big. I knew they were going to drop her. And that's exactly what happened. And then she didn't release another album until 2016. We're now in 2020. 20 years after her first album was released. She should have had a bigger career. She's really good. I don't want to say was because she's still around. She still tours. But to go from having a debut single go number one in the U.S. and number 5 in the United Kingdom, do you know how monumental that is? It is super hard to get a top 10 hit in the UK. People say that if you get your song even charted in the UK, that's like incredible. And to be in the top, that's like unbelievable. And you're from another country. Do you know what that speaks of? She wasn't just some flash in the pan artist. I blame Elektra for that. They didn't have to do her like that. And I think they did it because she was a older woman. I don't think colorism was involved. I think it was because she was older. And maybe she didn't want to play industry politics. And maybe certain people basically was like, hey, you don't push this artist, we'll pay you a nice, handsome amount of money. Push somebody else. Push somebody so much younger. I don't believe Missy sabotaged her career. Some people were saying that. I certainly don't believe it. I don't. What I do know is that Smoking Cigarettes went number one on the U.S. bubbling R&B. U.S. R&B bubbling under charts. I do know that Boogie Tonight was re-released by a United Kingdom group. And it went number one back in 2006. And because she wrote the song, that was a big hit. She got a lot of money. But what Tweet's album represented, in my opinion, was the hope and future of what R&B could have still been today. Every song that she on that album was really good. I can give you all the tracks. She had My Place. She had the intro. She had My Place. She had Smoking Cigarettes, which was like the third track. And, when they say, like, when you have a song, like, on the beginning of the album, that's usually, like, a hit single. Best Friend with Bilal. I wasn't really too crazy about Bilal, though. Always Will. I remember that. Boogie Tonight. I really like that song. Oops. Oh My. Her signature hit. Make Your Move was good. Motel was a little bit weird. Beautiful, one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard in my life. But I can't listen to it because it'll make me cry now. I can't listen to it now. Complain was cool. Heaven, I remember Heaven. Call Me, that was the party song that she had to deal with Verizon. Drunk, I remember Drunk. Southern Hummingbird outro. Sexual Healing with Miss Jade, that was good. And then Big Spender, that was cool. Now, Miss Jade, she was a Missy artist, and she's the one that now has beef with Missy because she said Missy stole her swag. I'm not going to say nothing about that. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to leave it right there. But she had a big hit with Turn the Light Off with Nelly Furtado, and then nothing really happened with her career after that. But 2000s R&B was really great. I actually like it more so than late 90s R&B. But there were a lot of missteps that occurred in the second half, particularly the second half of the 2000s. If, let's say, music executives were releasing music and singles particularly like they did in the 90s, do you know that we would not be in the dredges of R&B and even pop music like we are now? We wouldn't have these talentless hacks. You know, a lot of people blame the internet for music of today. I totally disagree. Given the fact that we had the internet in 1994, it's almost 30 years. I'm not blaming the internet. I blame the record industry and the record moguls not releasing the right singles and pretty much focusing on artists based on looks and youthhood and not having actual musicians. And really, I blame the 1996 Communications Act, which affected Black independent radio stations, which is the main reason why you had artists like Drake making it, because he benefited from heavy rotations. People say Nicki Minaj, Rihanna, they say even Beyonce is the reason why she's big because of the 1996 Communication Act. I don't really think so that much because even now, Beyonce's music is not really being played in rotation heavy since 2016. But for artists like Tweet, who were given a second chance in the music industry, they needed to have their music heard for staying power, not just for themselves, but for the whole genre to still be in a position of power, because R&B is not anymore. Because of artists like Tweet, who were marginalized, and you basically had what I call the 20 R&B, which were the 20 R&B artists that were allowed to be played in heavy rotation throughout radio, even on MTV and BET. You now had a lot of white artists who would come up and basically benefit from this because white radio stations, they play their own people's music. They play it. If they see that it's going to be popular and it's going to benefit them, they play it. They don't really play the industry politics like how they do in black radio. Or there's really no black radio, but black-oriented radio stations. We got to save R&B music. And the only way it's going to be saved, we're going to have to take the radio stations to the internet. And we're going to have to start playing and breaking acts again. You can't even see what the top 10 songs are now unless you sign on and pay to have an account with Billboard. It's private now. We don't know what's going on. It's really sad. I never thought this would happen. If somebody would have told me 20 years ago in April of 2002, hey, R&B is not going to be popular 20 years from now, I would laugh in your face. I would curse you out and I would tell you to keep it pushing. But we're here 20 years later. And just think of how many people could have been big. Think of the people that never even got to be where Tweet is and was really good because of marginalization of R&B music, pop music. Sad. But we have the memories though. And I still got Tweet's album. And then we got the internet where I could just basically go on YouTube Music and listen to the whole album. And with that being said, it's your girl, Miss Analytical. I'm signing off. Thank you for listening to this commentary. Please like, subscribe, share, comment. And let's beat the algorithm together. And I will talk to you soon. Later.